6 o'clock p.m. This meeting is being live streamed. I'd like to ask you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Okay, let's get started with the approval of our May 28th council meeting minutes. Are there any questions or objections to that? In that case, I'm looking for a motion to approve the May 28th, 2024 council meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
And Phyllis with the second. That was not me banging the gavel, I'm just clumsy. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. At this time, council will hear any comments, requests, or concerns from a member of the public related to items on the agenda or other matters. You will have 5 minutes to speak. We do ask that you please come up to either the microphone here or the podium to this side so that you can be heard on the live stream and be recorded. You'll also be asked to give your name and a general address for the record. Does anybody in the audience wish to address council? Please.
One up.
Podium over there is best.
Good evening. My name is Julie Sirkovich. I live on Her Avenue in Millersville. I am here tonight because I would like to bring up the Hometown Heroes Banners program for Millersville Borough. Just at the beginning stages of this, I really want to do it to honor my dad. We need first the permission of the Millersville Borough to do this. I know PPNL will have a say in that also because of the telephone poles. But I really think Millersville is a perfect place to do this. I have talked to Columbia Borough, who has just, well, they're still doing it. They have had such a enthusiastic response to everybody that has wanted to do it. And they're very willing to help us out. I know Phyllis has talked to Quarryville. They're also willing to help us out. Again, I'm just in the beginning stages. It's just an idea. Volunteers are welcome. And permission is begged. So there we go. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I just want to say that we have discussed this in the past, back when we were working on the community and Millersville University banners. And we had discussed doing the hometown banners, and at that time, or hometown heroes banners. And at that time, I did a lot of research, which I have given to Julie, and she's been doing a lot on her own also. But the thing I think that most people will mainly want to know is the fact that it's not going to cost the borough anything. These banners that you see in every town around here are provided by the families of the veterans that they are honoring. And that fee that they pay includes their banner, all the brackets, the installation, and any other costs that might be involved. And the borough will not have to be involved except with giving permission to move ahead with this. And I'm sure that we'll need some background help, Rebecca, from time to time. But I would like to make a motion that the borough accept this offer of proceeding with the Hometown Heroes banners.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I feel guilty when I drive through Mountjoy, Quarryville. I've often thought about that. I was going to bring it up later on. I'm new here. But now that you've been thinking about it, I think it's a terrific idea. And I'll bet you could get probably some help from the VFW, local VFW.
Yeah,
too. I'm sure they would.
They're number 2 on my list.
Yeah.
And I'll second.
Okay, so
That's your motion.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Could you just repeat one more time the motion that you made so that we have the exact wording?
And I'm supposed to remember that as I said. We're moving to have the Borough Council approve moving forward with Hometown Heroes banners for the borough. I think I said something like that.
Other citizens' requests or concerns?
My name is Richard Franz. I live at 55 North Duke Street. There's some concerns around the baseball field. We're just wondering if there's some kind of curfew for the lights after a certain time that it should be turned out, or after games right away. The music, it's played really loud sometimes. Maybe the speakers can be changed and towards the players or the field itself instead of the whole community. Also, they took a bunch of trees down, especially in left field where guys hit home runs and the ball goes way over, and they spend a lot of money looking for balls and trying to find them, and kids play down there and lawnmowers hit them, that type of thing. So they put an invisible netting up that would keep all the balls in that area. That would save them money in looking for new balls and that type of thing. And last but not least, I know they did some lawn cutting and stuff, and since I think they changed from farmland to regular land, that the college and whoever should maintain the grass more efficiently. Hopefully when everything gets, all the building and all that stuff, because I even had a guy from, well, I guess the pest control people were coming around hitting you pretty hard, saying that you were getting hit by all these bugs and stuff because of the fields that were left go. Now they cleaned those up. I just hope that they keep on keeping them to where they're supposed to, so they can maintain the bug population.
And I'm sorry, just a quick question. I missed at the very beginning. What's the location you're talking about?
Oh, it's up at the baseball field and all the new development of the housing back between Duke Street and
Okay.
Fifth Street.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, appreciate the feedback. Are there any others? Seeing none, we'll move on. Oh, we do? Oh, I'm sorry. By all means,
Sorry.
please come on up.
I have a hard time in front of people, so just bear with me.
But all right, yep,
It doesn't matter either, the small
we
one.
have too many options maybe.
Come here, you have a podium.
My name is Steve Clemmer. I live in Valley Road. I have a little bit of a selfish request. There is a ordinance 350-35 of the Millersville Borough Code, and it's about any vehicle parking on the street that is basically not a car, and I'm asking for an exemption for my vehicle. It's no longer or wider than any of the full-size pickups that are sitting on the street. It's a small school bus. It is no longer titled as a bus. The Commonwealth definition of a bus in Pennsylvania is a vehicle that transports 16 or more passengers. Mine only has 5 seats. They've all been removed. I use it as my office. I know that's odd, but I'm an odd individual. And I will say the neighbors all appreciate it. The little kids come by and look at the bus. It's a red bus. There is one individual who makes complaints, and the ordinance is on his side. So I'm just here to plea for an exemption. And I could state the Commonwealth definition. Ordinance is code 171.2 of Pennsylvania 67.
Have you applied for a variance to that particular ordinance?
No, I'm coming to you guys now to figure out how to potentially resolve it.
All right. Can we circle back with Mr. Claremont to get him the details he
Now we
needs?
can get with you on the process.
Thank
We'll
you.
get you squared away, Steve. Other citizens' requests or concerns? All right, very good. In that case, we will move on to item F on our agenda. We're going to be discussing and voting on, potentially voting on the resolution of our code of conduct, which we've been talking about now for a couple of months. I believe this has been amended slightly to remove just one or two items that were seen as contentious or restrictive. Just perfectly fine. I'm comfortable moving forward unless there are other questions or other discussion that we want to have before moving forward with this resolution.
The only thing that I would ask if there's anything, regarding attendance that we can put in here.
So, as with anything that's on this list, we can certainly add anything that's within our legal right to add. We could add something about attendance in here. I have no problem with that. My concern is when it comes to anything that's on this list, the degree to which we can enforce this is fairly limited. Especially when it comes to members of this council. We're all elected by the voters of Millersville. They're the only ones who have a decision about whether we can be here or not. And they decide that at the ballot boxes. We can certainly move the word has escaped me. But we can publicly state that we resolve that an individual is acting outside of the bounds of this. It's a black mark on their record, but for all intents and purposes, we can't assign a fine or remove them from council, these kinds of things. Now, for individuals who serve as appointees that are appointed by this board, we have a little bit more control over what can and can't be done punitively to those individuals. So if your concern is regarding members of the council, looking around at the empty seats, then yes, we can add something, but again, the degree to which we can enforce or compel attendance is fairly limited
We can't really do anything about.
for the members of this council. Would you be comfortable moving forward without that? Or is this going to be a sticking point? All right.
Then I move that we accept the code of conduct as has been presented and discussed.
If there's no further discussion, we have a second from Mike. All those in favor of adopting our new code of conduct, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Very well. Then the resolution carries. At this point, we are going to move on to our individual committee meetings. We are apparently not going to be eating up a lot of time on this. I don't have sufficient members for the finance committee to actually impanel or make any motions, so we're just going to skip that. The one thing I would say is once we finish with the individual committee meetings, I am going to ask for a vote to accept our May financial report. But that can wait until after we're done with the committee meetings and back to regular council business. Now it's my understanding that personnel also has no business to discuss. And because of some feedback we got last time we did this and to make sure that everybody can hear us, we're going to skip the table and just leave the committees up here. We'll do a roll call for public welfare and public works so that you know that I won't be an active participant unless there's discussion called for. And then we will move on from there. But as it stands, I will turn over to the chair of our Public Welfare and Public Works Committee, Phyllis.
Do you want to do the roll, Sue?
I think you.
I do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Mike is here. Darlene is here. I am here. And we are only missing Linda this evening. So we do have a quorum from our committee. The first thing that I want to announce is that the short-term rental ordinance is completed. and it will be voted on at the next meeting. It has already gone to the county and they have approved it and all of that stuff is done. And if you are not familiar with it and want to learn more about short-term rentals and what it requires, the ordinance is posted on our website. Now, there is one good bit of news here for people who have a short-term rental, and I don't see all of those people tonight. They often come, but I don't see them tonight. The good news is that the ADA accessibility will not be required in order to run a short-term rental. However, everyone will still need to comply with all of the UCC requirements that the state has, and they are all in the ordinance. And if you want to have a short-term rental, you will have to do that. And everybody must still apply for a special exception at zoning. And then you can get a packet from the borough that will give you all of the information that you need and has to be filled out and returned to zoning so that zoning can hear your application for running a short-term rental in the borough. So that's just in the way of an announcement. Rob, do you have the code enforcement report, please?
So did everybody have a chance to review the report? Was there any questions about the report on any issues that you might have with anything there? Anything we wrote up? I mean, we're getting permits in. There's been a lot of grass complaints coming through. We've been taking care of them, some abandoned vehicles. That's really what I got. If you guys have questions on the report, you can please feel free to ask.
Does anyone have any questions for Rob? Okay, thank you for your report. The next item under public welfare is a discussion of a false alarms ordinance. We have discussed this over and over and over. And data has finally been collected. I have gotten what I have asked for, or I should say we have gotten what we have asked for from both the university and from Blue Rock. And what we really need is people working together, not more ordinances to enforce. And we did find that once we got the people from MU and Blue Rock actually meeting and going over some things, the number of false alarms really did decrease. And so that is a very positive thing. But the committee also has felt that right now the collected data does not support the need for an ordinance. Therefore, it is our intention we are not moving on an ordinance at this time. We are not moving that forward. We're going to let sleeping dogs lie. That may change in the future. We have gotten an ordinance written from our solicitor, so we always have something that we can go back to if needed, but right now the data just does not support the need of an ordinance. Everyone in agreement?
Total agreement.
Do I need to vote on that?
Vote on not passing an
Yeah.
ordinance? No, I don't think
That's
so.
right. I don't think so either, but I wasn't sure. Now, the next thing is a continued discussion of vacant property ordinance. Rebecca is going to speak to this, but I will start off that conversation because I met with Rebecca so that we could go over this. We did have the solicitor write up an ordinance on vacant and abandoned properties. And then several of us sat down and went through that with a fine-tooth comb, looking for questions and things we didn't understand or things that we thought maybe needed to be changed or what have you. At any rate, when I met with Rebecca, we seemed to think that our current ordinances if they're enforced and we can locate the owners and so on, that we have a much better chance of handling the issues that we see without actually having to write and enforce another ordinance. Now, if a property is falling apart and it's a safety issue, the borough can go in and get a court order, but this takes a long time to do, and the borough will probably not be able to recoup the money that they spent, and it's not really worth the effort. We do have options that are more cost effective. If there is a blighted property and we can't find the contact people, and we have properties like that in the borough, we can involve the Lancaster Redevelopment Authority, and we can ask them to step in and help us. Now, Rebecca, maybe you would like to speak to this more than what I've said.
Right now. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were still going. So in your backup documents was an executive summary that I put together to sort of frame some of the issues related to vacant and abandoned properties in terms of the challenges certainly that they pose, and sort of some of the big picture solutions. One of the more big picture solutions that would come out of something like an ordinance would be some sort of registry, allowing us to track, categorize vacant and abandoned properties. But there's a lot of difficulties with that when it comes to actual enforcement. And then another sort of big picture way to deal with the issue is through our code enforcement processes as they currently exist. Due to the fact that the council has, of course, years ago passed adopted the property maintenance code that we have here in the borough, that speaks to a lot of the maintenance issues that come up with a vacant or abandoned property, or I should say a vacant property that's not taken care of, or an abandoned property. So ways to do that would be direction from council around enforcing the property maintenance code to its full extent. Speaking specifically to the avenue that Councilmember Giberson mentioned, in our research about the work that the Lancaster Redevelopment Authority does, they have programs specifically to help with blighted properties that are difficult to handle due to the nature of that particular property, whether it be deceased owners, whether it be owners that we cannot locate. So they have specific programs that can allow us to deal with those on a case-by-case basis. That's really the crux of those programs is the borough being able to come forward to specifically their vacant property reinvestment program and say, we have a property, we believe it falls into your category of blight, we'd like to recommend this property for that program. And there's more information about it that I put into the executive summary that I won't regurgitate to you, but the crux of it is that it's an assistance program for not only that property, but for the borough as well. We don't necessarily have to take on the burden ourselves of trying to handle a blighted property. We have support like this program where there are professionals that would be able to help work it through the process. And if it ultimately gets to a place where where the redevelopment authority would look at acquiring that property to redevelopment, that's an avenue. But their first goal is simply to bring it out of a blighted state. And sometimes that's simply working with an owner that can be located to create a plan to redevelop the property. So for those situations where we know of a blighted property, council would have the ability to give us, to vote to give us the authority to submit an application for that specific property. So that's certainly an option, and as you'll see in the executive summary, that's certainly, from a staff perspective, that's certainly an option that we would recommend, especially in talking with our solicitor about this issue. It's really a case-by-case issue, and programs like this allow us to deal with things on a case-by-case basis. Same goes for the direction on code enforcement. Again, something that does very much come down to a case-by-case issue. So the big questions for council on this, and the way to give us better direction on what council would like to do with specific vacant or abandoned properties. The big questions, what's the ultimate goal? If the goal is adherence to the property maintenance code, direction from council is really what we would be looking for with our already adopted property maintenance code. How does the borough want to invest in properties where owners or mortgagees are either absent or uncooperative? If the borough has a vacant property with significant maintenance issues, it's quite the process, like the council vice president was saying, that involves collecting of evidence, court order, that ultimately sometimes doing the work ourselves, which is costly. And then finally, does the borough want to attempt to regulate this issue? That is a very fact-dependent issue for each property, because we certainly do know that there are very few municipalities that actually have a vacant property ordinance. Instead, they rely heavily on their property maintenance code, just due to the fact that every property is unique. So those are sort of the big questions to think about for council.
So did you say that the master redevelopment can or cannot help if the owner cannot be found?
They
They
can.
They can, so they can acquire that property without.
It goes through a very long process, but that is one of the avenues that can be taken if it comes to the point where there is no one to claim that property.
And what do we do if our code guy shows up at the house to take a look or inspects and there's somebody living there that doesn't own it either?
So for those particular type of issues, it does become an issue between the owner and the individual, and does of course often lead to the police being involved if there's someone living there who's not supposed to be.
Then if I understand this correctly, you would like guidance from our committee tonight on basically two things. The one being that we move forward with using our current maintenance codes to handle a lot of these issues. And the other item is that we should be authorizing the borough manager, you, to move forward with involving the Lancaster Redevelopment Authority whenever that's possible.
Yes, if there, and it's probably an opportunity for council to think about properties that have been of specific concern that you might feel would be fitting for this, and that's something that certainly could come up at another meeting. We would need council's vote specifically to submit any property to that program. So it's certainly something that I think the committee and council as a whole could think about for the future. And then same thing I would say for the property maintenance code, that if that's the direction council would like to take, then when we have specific concerns about, or if you have specific concerns about properties, either us bringing it to you or you bringing it to us, that's the opportunity then for you all to give a specific direction on how you'd like to handle that specific issue given the facts of that property.
Do we have a number? I think I asked you this once before, but I apologize, I don't remember. Do we have a number of vacant properties that we're dealing with at this point?
Vacant properties, yes. Vacant and blighted properties, a small handful.
Then I think I would like to make a motion from our committee to move forward and present to council then the moving forward with using the maintenance code to take care of a lot of the issues that we're facing with these vacant and abandoned properties. That's what you want, right?
Well,
I think that's what we need to do.
Yeah, if that's the direction that council wants to go, or the committee wants to go in this evening, then we don't truly need a motion. It's when a specific property would come up that we'd want more direction.
Okay, so is the committee in agreement? Okay, and the business of involving the Lancaster Redevelopment Authority whenever possible, is the committee in agreement that that is a direction we should take with those few properties where it's feasible and they fall into the correct category?
Yeah,
Yes.
because that's the only way we're gonna get.
That's the only way we're gonna get anything done. So I think the committee is in agreement that that's the direction we would like the borough to take.
And they take on all the responsibility.
That's right,
You don't have to do
Lancaster
anything, we
Redevelopment
say,
does.
Essentially, after we would apply for the program, and if that property was accepted.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are there any examples of what they do with the home if they acquire it? I can understand the cost. I have a property in mind that I lived next to for 10 years while I lived in the borough, which I know at this point would be very costly for the borough, because if you assumed it, you would assume the cost of knocking this house down, which is basically what has to happen. And if you give that option over to the development authority, I'd like to see some examples of what they do once they own it, and now they have the say of what goes on that property.
From my understanding, and obviously it would be on a case-by-case basis, their goal is to return it to exactly what it was. If it's a residential property that has become blighted, they would return it to a functional residential property. If it was a commercial, same thing.
I worked with them on a smaller scale before, so I do know they do really good work. So the way I work with them is there's a property that maybe an elderly lady lives in, or someone that just can't afford. They would go to them and they actually give them so much money. Like they'll say, if you get this much money, they hire the people, they take care of it, and get whatever the problem is resolved for them.
I would just be concerned if I still lived there, whether that was gonna end up being a single family house again, or they have the option to have a group home or low income or whatever they wanna do with the
Oh, I
property
don't
after
think they
that.
do that. I think it does return to an actual residential.
And it would have to, of course, fit into all of our zoning requirements.
I don't know if they would ever do something that needs to be knocked down, though. I don't think that's in there.
I don't know.
So if the house is that bad that it has to be knocked down.
We have
I
several that do need to be knocked down.
I don't think that's in their wheelhouse.
That I don't know. I know they deal with severely blighted properties, but I don't know what their course of action is once it gets.
That's why I say I'd like to see some examples of properties they've acquired and what it ended up being.
That's a great question.
I think it's a very good question.
Absolutely, and that's something, if we are at any point going in the route of council wanting to actually send an application, then that's something that we could then have them provide to us.
Can they come in to one of these meetings?
Oh, yeah, they did say that they would be, so a representative would be willing to
That'd be great. Then
come to a meeting.
And we can ask all the questions we want.
Are you interested in them coming to speak to the committee with or without an actual property in mind?
without, yeah.
Yeah,
without
I
it first.
agree. No, that's fine. Okay, then that's everything for Public Works, and I think you know how we want to move forward with these things. Thank you.
All right, despite what I said, I think we'll wait on the May financial report until the next session for this month, when we're gonna be voting on everything anyway. In the absence of the mayor, we'll skip over the mayor's report, and we will roll right over to you, Rebecca, with the manager's report.
Sure, absolutely. The first item on the manager's report is discussion and approval of the hiring of Andrea, oh my gosh, I still can't say your name, last name perfectly, Force, thank you, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
For the position of police secretary number 2. This position was put out for its typical internal advertising. And then because we received an internal application, we, as per the union contract, interviewed that individual, and we are very pleased to bring forward the approval of Andrea, as Andrea has been a member of the staff at Millersville Borough for a number of years, and has been working hard to learn the ropes of the police secretary number 2 position, and received a glowing review from her supervisor. So we're bringing that forward to you this evening for approval. She would be starting the day after our current police secretary 2 retires. That would be August 17th would be the official start date.
In that case, do I hear a motion to approve the hiring of Andrea Forsch for the position of Police Secretary 2?
I motion that we hire Andrea for the position of police secretary 2.
Do I hear a second? Second. From Mike. Any discussion required? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Then, in light of the previous motion and vote, we would then like to request approval to advertise for Andrea's current position, which is the Police Secretary 1, working on getting that then filled in order to have that also filled around the late August time.
Very well. Do I hear a motion to approve to advertise for the Police Secretary 1 vacancy for August?
So moved.
So moved. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second from Darlene. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries.
And the last item that was for the manager's report, the discussion of the riparian buffer easement. Unfortunately, we don't actually have the agreement. It was supposed to be ready for this evening, but it unfortunately is not ready for this evening. So we will have to bring that to a subsequent council meeting, likely the next council meeting at the end of this month, in order for council to vote on execution of that agreement. But that is the stream restoration project that is the project that we received the ARPA funding for from the county. In order for us to be able to move forward to bid out that project, we do need to execute that agreement, and the agreement would be with Student Lodging Inc. for easement right around the stream in order to be able to do the work. So we will hopefully be bringing forward that agreement to you at the next meeting.
Very well, then we'll wait until the next meeting to discuss that. I have nothing on my report, so we will move directly into any final citizens' requests or concerns. And seeing none, gonna draw it out. All right. Very well, I see no need to move to executive session, so I am looking for, do you have something to say, Mike?
The Millersville representatives here tonight, correct? I'd like to ask you, maybe you don't have this information now, but maybe you could seek it out. I'm going back to the Hometown Heroes subject, and I've noticed there are many poles on Manor Avenue and on George Street that are not used. It wouldn't be, if we had Hometown Heroes, it's going to be too busy. There's plenty of room for the college. So my question to you is, do you have any extra implements to erect the, for instance, have you used all of your utilities to erect the Millersville poles? Are there may be extra, perhaps brackets or whatever, and for the people who would be interested in this who couldn't afford that, maybe the college could donate them to this cause.
Well, yes, I'll speak to that, so will Victor. Go ahead.
Okay. So, thank you for that. That's a great question. And the reality is that we did have more pole licenses, approvals. I'm not exactly sure what PPL gives you, but we had more poles available to us than we used in the college banner project. So there are some poles that one could use. There are some additional brackets both on your side and on our side, I believe, in inventory.
But when you say our side, how do you mean?
I apologize, you were not on council at the time yet. The project that was done with the current banners, the college and community banners,
Okay.
that was a joint project between us.
I see. I thought
Yeah,
it
that was
strictly you.
that was a 100% a joint project. Phyllis was your lead, I was our lead, and Phyllis and I probably walked. I know Phyllis walked it multiple times, but I know I walked the route as well with our team. So we designed the banners. Council approved the banners, and then we worked to get them installed on the poles with your public works team as well. So it truly was a joint project. There are some additional, but again, I wouldn't be sure that there would be enough in inventory to cover as many as you'd like. But
Right, but I'm certain there'll be people who would love to have it done.
yeah,
and
I believe there were some more in inventory, both on your side and our side.
Yeah.
Mike, I might add to that, this project will probably get a tremendous volume of people who want to do it. Because when we've talked to Quarryville and when I've talked to Columbia and so on, they often get in the neighborhood of 400 applicants. So the fee that they get charged covers everything. It covers the banner, it covers the brackets, it covers the cost of, the borough doesn't have a bucket truck, so we will have to rent a bucket truck. So all those kind of costs get figured into what the citizens pay to have their veteran honored. It does not cost the borough anything. Now, we would then also be using Wallbank, Cottage, Charlotte, Landis, more than just what we've used so far, which is part of George and Manor. Now, where we ran into a sticking point before is with PP&L. And in a way, I don't understand this because every other town is using all the PP&L poles and they're all covered with these banners. But I had received a list from the prior Streets Department chair, Andy, that gave me a big list of poles that PP&L said we could not use. So in moving forward with this project, one of the first things we will need to do will be to meet with PP&L, and they'll probably send somebody out because they'll let us know. You've seen those metal things on the poles. Those are the numbers, and they will tell us which ones we can and cannot use. Then there's also Verizon poles and all kinds of other stuff like that that will usually let you use their poles. But all of that is very time consuming and will take a while. Now, PP&L charges a fee to do that. And so that too is a fee that would be incorporated into the price of what it would cost for a family to put a banner up. So, you know, there's a lot of groundwork and legwork that has to be done. And Victor's right, he and I have walked around and looked at a lot of poles. But, you know, we would like to get this off the ground, but it will be a while till anything can really get accomplished and be put up.
Well, sometimes a timely letter to the editor involving a utility that is interfering with honoring veterans would be useful, and I'm pretty good at writing letters.
Well, that just might be something we're gonna have you do.
Please then use your letter writing to write to Verizon, because honestly, I'm far beyond fed up with Verizon's responsiveness, particularly on our campus Verizon poles. As you've seen in the borough on George, there's still a Verizon pole that is being held together by rope. And I find that still, I mean, and that, Phyllis, that's been over, what, 2 years now that's been being held up by rope?
At least.
Yeah. So,
at
I believe
least.
Verizon was also a sticking point for those of us who had lost patients at Frederick Street and Duke as well.
yeah,
That's right, exactly.
All right, we can certainly
Thank you.
continue this discussion later, get it added to the agenda next time. I don't see any need for executive session, so I am looking for a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Phyllis. All those in favor of adjournment, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Everybody have a safe night.